Come, let us enter this space of hope and community. Come, let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passion and compassion. Come, let us enter this space with the stories of our ancestors, for their strength and wisdom beats in our hearts. Come into this space, present to the beloved companions who move beside us. Come into this space, mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come into this space and let us worship. And we'll start with our first hymn, which I believe is 93, To Mercy, Pity, Peace, and Love. And now let's share some of the joys and concerns that have happened. I know it's been a tough few weeks since I last saw all of you. We lost one of our loved and valued members, Betsy, and we bring into this service other concerns that weigh heavy on our hearts. And then on the other side, joys that balance the losses and trials of life. Let us share them now. So please come up, pick up the microphone, tell us what's on your mind, and light a candle in honor of your joys and concerns.
Okay.
Oh, I skipped the responsive reading, didn't I? We'll do that after. Go ahead, Patty. Let's do the responsive reading after the joys and concerns.
This is just another vexing thing. And I feel it only fair to share with you because it may somewhere miraculously fall upon your head. But Paul and Bill and I were here the other day trying to tidy up because I'm pretty useless still with my icky old chest cavity. But I thought, oh, look at that lovely cobweb. Let's me just knock it down. So it got all wrapped around the broom. And I thought, oh, let me get that one. So I got that one. I brought the broom down, and I couldn't find the cobweb. So Bill said, did you check your hair? Jeff said, did you check your hair? Nothing in my hair, but it is lurking around downstairs in the kitchen somewhere still. I've been up looking all over for it. So just in case you get a, now you know. I don't know we need a candle for that, though, do we? No.
Nine years ago today, I was in a village city in Nepal, and we finally got our marriage certificate signed. So that was our anniversary when they finally signed the paperwork. So today's our anniversary. 9 years I've been married.
Congratulations.
And I got breakfast in bed today. Although I did yesterday as well. Emerson likes to make waffles and Avi likes to bring it into me and I stay in there and read. So it's really a glorious life I have.
It is.
I would just like to light a candle for our Canadian neighbors to the north. I'm just really flummoxed by what's going on. And it takes a lot to make Canadians angry, and they're very angry with us right now.
Any other joys and concerns? No? Well, let's light one last candle for all of the unspoken joys and concerns in our congregation. Some of them unspoken by spiders who cannot speak, but do build cobwebs. Patty, would you be so kind as to give me the number of the responsive reading? I forgot to make a note of it in my script.
596.
596. So will we all turn to number 596 in the bottom back of the hymnal for our responsive reading? It is called Boundless Goodwill. Let us cultivate boundless goodwill. Let none in anger or ill will wish another harm. Radiating friendliness all over the whole world. And maybe a little bit extra radiated towards Canada. Each week we take an offering that reminds us of the critical importance of our community. Without your generosity, we would not be able to meet here, share our lives, and hear what we hope are uplifting messages that help us get through the week. I'll now take the offering that helps us keep the doors to this, the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Niagara Falls, open and welcoming. We have a meditation reading this morning, which is called A Stone's Throw. It's from a book called War Zone Faith, written by Army chaplain George A. Tiger. These are his reflections on Afghanistan. As I ride through Kandahar City's Subdistrict 9, I see a naked, dust-covered kid playing along the side of the road. That's not the strangest thing, but when he picks up a large rock and hurls it at the truck, I wonder aloud, what the hell? Who lets their kid run around naked throwing rocks? What kind of a place is this? Years of war and violence have produced a perversely unique system where hurling rocks at others is a legitimate sport. It's easy to become cynical, even contemptuous of those kids who throw rocks. However, we must not allow our anger to numb our compassion. In a place like this, compassion for a dirty, rock-throwing kid is all that keeps us human. If our entire world, from our first breaths, was a closely circumscribed existence defined by poverty, war, death, dirt, and dust, how would we perceive the world around us? How different would we be? Maybe rock throwing would not seem so strange. My son has grown up seeing men in uniform as the good guys, not a threat. When his bunny rabbit died, he cried for a day and buried it in the backyard. That is as close to death as he has ever been. He takes a hot bath every night. He has ice-cold water, juice, and soda for the taking. His world is secure, reliable, and good. He is a happy, safe, and loved. The kid with the rock has never known the world that my son takes for granted. His world is not secure, reliable, and good. It is dangerous, uncertain, and rough. Still, he knows how to throw rocks. It is one certain thing in an uncertain world. So that's what he does. Understanding this, my response is compassion. Compassion for a child who seeks to hurt me. Compassion for a child who is no less a child of God than my own son. I cannot change his world, but I must try to understand it. Otherwise, a kid with a rock is just one more kind of enemy instead of the person that he really is. A kid who, like my own son, only wants to be happy, safe, and loved. And let's have a moment of silence before we start the sermon. The words compassion and empathy are sometimes confused as meaning the same thing. And they are closely related, but there's a difference. Compassion means I give your concern weight. I value it. I care about you, but I don't necessarily pick up or take on your feelings. Empathy means I feel the feelings of other people. I have taken them on as my own. The question of nature or nurture has always come into play with these two emotions. And now there's a new field in science called sociogenomics, which is a combination of behavioral science and genetics that says both compassion and empathy begin in our genes. All it takes is a look around your own family to decide for yourself if you accept the concept of sociogenomics. Personally, I find that it helps me understand things that once seemed impossibly confusing. For example, I spent January and February in Flagstaff with my son Seth, his partner Kara, their 2-year-old Willow, and their newborn Nora. I have always found Kara to be both compassionate and empathetic. In fact, too empathetic for her own good. She definitely takes the feelings of others to heart. She often becomes very emotional about the stress that's experienced by people that she may not even know. My son, on the other hand, is compassionate and empathetic to a point, but he has boundaries that protect his vulnerabilities. So it was kind of interesting to watch Willow, the 2-year-old, with her dolls, our dogs, her mom, Seth, and I. She is a typical terrible 2. She's so bad. My son was Googling it on the internet to find out if she was abnormal or if this was, normal behavior. She is double down stubborn at times and then absolutely charming at others. If one of the dogs, and there were 4 of them, including my Stony, got hurt or maybe had a sore paw, she was very compassionate, caring, but not overly so. Of course, she's a bit narcissistic too because she's 2 years old. When we had a group hug the night before I left and Kara burst into tears, Willow leaned back and said, "Sad." She is learning the language of emotions. When I had my furnace ducts cleaned after I got back, which makes a lot of noise, I sent Kara and Willow a photograph of Stony mournfully laying in her crate for safety. Willow said, "Aw, Stony, hug." She is definitely empathetic, and she has compassion for other living beings at a pretty young age. So I'm thinking that maybe the sociogenomics people have a point. It's in her genes. I recently read 2 articles illustrating compassion and empathy in the AARP magazine. One described a Holocaust survivor, Saul Dreyer, who at the age of 8 was in Auschwitz. Saul found himself using spoons to drum the beat for a cantor who cheered his fellow Jews by singing Jewish songs. Dreyer found that even though the inmates were exhausted and starving, the music lifted them up. And that is how he learned to drum, which he still does today at the age of 89. The other story is about Emma Patterson, a woman who became a foster parent in her 50s and fostered dozens of children from babyhood through to adulthood. Emma was a single mom with 2 teenagers when she started fostering. All of her foster children keep in touch with her to this day. So they were most certainly raised by a compassionate and empathetic woman. But according to the sociogenomicists, they must have also had the capacity for those traits when they came into Emma's life. Both Saul and Emma have compassion and empathy, but the history of their lives tells us that they also have good boundaries. They've lived long and fruitful lives and been surrounded by family and friends who have stayed in lasting relationships with them. They are illustrations of how compassion and empathy lead us to an environment that values the common good, the inherent worth of every individual, the importance of the interdependent web of all existence. There is also a thing called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue develops when we don't have good boundaries. We care too much for the emotional pain of others. We take on their pain and their trauma as though it were our own. And we threaten our own safety and sanity by trying to give too much of ourselves. Compassion fatigue happens to many healthcare workers during COVID. They felt powerless to help people. Their empathy and sensitivity became reduced. They were overwhelmed, exhausted, numb, disconnected, had problems with their personal relationships, neglected their own self-care, and they withdrew. Compassion fatigue does not help us stay connected with the common good. It makes us want to become hermits, and some people do just that. They are reclusive. We are all in danger of compassion fatigue right now. There are so many people and things to worry about. Students, the elderly, the homeless, the jobless, the environment. Everything seems to be in danger of collapse, and we certainly feel helpless and powerless to do much about it. This did not all just start in January. It's been building for several years. We are only 5 years out of COVID, a time that really overwhelmed us and also encouraged us to seek reclusiveness. Today's world is a rerun of that stress. It's just coming from a different source. March is the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, where the faithful fast and take no water from dawn to dusk. The purpose of these holy days is to strengthen Muslims' spiritual connection with God through fasting, prayer, and reflection, and to cultivate self-discipline, empathy, and compassion. One post I read said, "It is a time to prioritize the well-being of others. Feeding the hungry is a fundamental act of compassion and solidarity." The Buddhists refer to compassion as bodhicitta, the deep desire to act for the welfare of all beings. In the book Active Hope, authors Joanna Macy and Chris Johnstone write, "When we feel this strongly in our heart, it acts as a foundation stone, something we can count on, whatever else is happening." Compassion is one of those foundations of humanity we talked about last month, and every religion honors it. There is a story about Gandhi, who was a devout Hindu throughout his life. When he was on one of his hunger strikes, a father whose daughter had been murdered had started a local battle with the family of the man who had killed her. This man, the father, came to Gandhi and said he would stop trying to avenge his daughter's life if only Gandhi would begin to eat again. The great soul realized that stopping the violence was not enough. He asked the father to embrace the man who had killed his daughter. In Gandhi's wisdom, it was not enough to stop the violence that was occurring. True healing had to happen. Forgiveness had to happen. And forgiveness is a large part of compassion. In my life, and I'm sure you've seen this too, Judgment is a big contributor to the lack of compassion. The man who lost his daughter appointed himself judge, jury, and executioner of the killer. While it was natural for him in his grief to do that, in a civilized society, that's not the way that things should work. No single one of us has enough information or wisdom to be the sole decider on another person's life. But we are all judgy at times, particularly if we live an isolated life of privilege. I once had a financial advisor who flat out said to me that people who didn't make a lot of money just didn't work hard enough or long enough. He was woke enough to know that he had a responsibility to give to those less fortunate, but I question if he really understood that birth is a lottery with so much at stake. George Tiger's meditation about the little naked boy throwing rocks at his truck in Afghanistan is a great illustration of how the birth lottery affects us. His comparison of the little boy with his own little boy is perfect. In the birth lottery, you can be born into extreme wealth, relative affluence, the middle class, or poverty. You can be born with a highly functional brain or one that's impaired by such things as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, or severely cerebral palsy. You can be born with good health or poor health. You can be born into a functional family that values education and supports ambition, or one that is dysfunctional and just plain holds the belief that we cannot or should not try to improve our lot in life. These families believe we are just worker bees, here to produce honey and serve the queen. You can be born in an area that provides great education or healthcare, or one that has poor education and little healthcare. There are so many factors involved. In addition to the birth lottery, there's luck, otherwise known as opportunity. Are there good paying jobs near you? Can you get to your job with or without public transportation? Can you get a scholarship to go on to higher education? Will someone in your life mentor you or give you a hand up? With 8.2 billion people on this earth, there are, of course, a handful who lose the birth lottery, but win the brain and luck lottery and are able to rise above their circumstances. But we cannot use those few as a yardstick to measure the rest. It's impossible for all 8.2 billion of us to be rich and famous. There is really no excuse for being judgy about the less fortunate when you look at all of the factors that contribute to success. And that is where compassion comes in. Compassion is putting aside your judgment and recognizing the birth lottery affects probably 99.9% of where we end up in this world. It is not how hard or how long we work each day. Seth and Kara, my son and his partner, have a lot to deal with right now. They have 2 small children, a house with a big mortgage. Getting health insurance for all of them is a challenge. They have 3 dogs, 2 careers, one that's on hold for a while and doesn't give you paid maternity leave. They feel that right now they have to focus on just maintaining their own lives and their little girls' lives. And therefore, they can't think about what's going on in the news right now. So, until Kara's friend, who just got her dream job working for the National Park Service lost it, the cuts in federal employees didn't mean much to them. I get it. They're overwhelmed, but they shouldn't be. If we lived in a compassionate country to begin with, they would not have to worry about health insurance or maternity leave pay. And they would probably have government-supported help coming to their house a couple of times a week. But that wasn't the birth lottery, what the birth lottery gave them. So they've become a bit reclusive right now. They are compassionate people, but unless you know what's going on, you don't know where to direct your compassion until it's one of your friends that needs support. I feel compassion towards all of the federal employees losing their jobs. For some, like Kara's friend, it's a crushed lifelong dream. For others, it's just plain loss of income without cause. For others, it's early retirement that will affect their financial stability in the future. It is the mental and emotional damage of being essentially told, you are a slacker. You have no expertise. Your job was not necessary. You weren't working hard enough or long enough. It is the feeling of being judged. I have compassion and empathy for their pain, but I can't take on too much of their pain or it would cripple me as it would cripple you. So what can we do? There is a website called No Small Acts. This site suggests several ideas. So here's just a few. Number one, stay informed. Support journalism and fact-based reporting. Don't let it overwhelm you, but we all have to be in the know. Listen. When you ask someone how they're doing, really listen. Start kind conversations. Don't be judgy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Advocate for peace, justice, and social action. Show your compassion. Carry some granola bars around with you in the car or some small care packages. And when you see a homeless person on the street, give them something to eat. Share the books you love. Keep reading and passing on the wisdom that you find when you read. And choose your own symbol of resistance. During World War II, women wore red lipstick in an act of defiance. What's your symbol of resistance and compassion for those being hurt and left out of our society? Not just kids, people are going to throw stones at cars and buildings, whatever, until we get through this period of instability. But as Tiger says, I cannot change his world, but I can and I must try to understand it. Otherwise, a kid with a rock is just one more kind of enemy instead of the person he really is. A kid who, like my own son, only wants to be happy, safe, and loved. If we can let go of our judgment and let others in without becoming their pain, we can reflect our own light back into the world through our compassion. There is a Tibetan Buddhist tradition called Tonglen. Tonglen asks us to breathe in the suffering of the world, to hold it in that unbreakable place of compassion, and then to breathe back light. As Mark Nepo says in his Book of Awakening, the beauty of such a practice is that it assumes and affirms there is something timeless and indestructible within each of us that can heal us and the world if we just open ourselves to it. Be open. So be it. Blessed be compassion and empathy. And shall we do the second hymn? Which is 332.
Perfect singer, songs of earth, rise on every field and hearth. Let our voices sound again, ancient songs of joy and pain. All your creatures strive for life, suffer hurt in angry strife. Seek compassion, find release in the covenant of peace. Sing a sacred melody for the justice that shall be. Let our harmonies resolve dissonance in steadfast love. Steadfast seeker, find our song, woven into life's made strong. Let the patterns of surprise kindle hope with each sunrise.
Hey, do we have any announcements before we close?
So this week in our pledge drive, we're looking at our fifth principle, which is the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. In our religious lives, the democratic process requires trust in the development of each individual conscience, a belief that such development is possible for each of us, as well as a commitment to cultivate our own conscience. We could call it a commitment to the value of each person. In the words of Theodore Parker, "You are as good as I am." My connection with the sacred is only as precious as my willingness to acknowledge the same connection in others. These are the words of Parisa Parsa. She did a sermon on the fifth principle. I also would like to commend to you, I'm a big podcast fan, and Jon Stewart has a weekly podcast called The Weekly Show. And this last week he had Maria Ressa on. She's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, a journalist, a Filipino-American who is still under indictment in the Philippines. She had a really great discussion with John, and one of the things that she said was what she's seeing in our country happened in the Philippines under Duterte. And she just really, really wanted to warn Americans. She said that 30 years ago, 70% of the world governments were democracies and 30% were other, like dictatorships and autocracies. And in 30 years, that's changed. It's totally flipped. Now only 30% of governments in the world are democracies. So I just like to say it in another way. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? Thanks, Joni. This is Richard Haas's version of how to be a good citizen.
Hi, I'm Richard Haas, author of the book, The Bill of Obligations, The 10 Habits of Good Citizens. From Thomas Jefferson, wherever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government, to Barack Obama. This democracy doesn't work if we don't have an informed citizenry. One constant is that an informed citizenry is central to a democracy. The most obvious reason to stay informed is to be able to wisely cast your vote and to hold those elected accountable. But what makes an informed citizen? Someone who understands the fundamentals of how our government operates. Someone who knows about our country's history and appreciates how that helps to explain where we are now and the choices before us. By contrast, a less informed citizenry can be a threat to our democracy. It's easier to be influenced by disinformation and conspiracies and to give in to those making false claims and promises. So how can you get informed? Seek out a range of sources for news. If there is a political bias, get a second competing opinion. Go to news outlets with rigorous fact-checking. Learn how to tell the difference between news and opinion, and don't rely on social media. The most basic way to get involved is to vote. There's no better way for citizens to get the policies they want and to hold representatives accountable. But there are other ways to get involved. Getting involved and participating allows you to become a true stakeholder in your community, whether it's advocating for specific causes, attending a community board meeting, volunteering for a campaign, or going to work in government. Contributing to the decision-making process actively allows your voice to be heard in issues that matter to you. Compromise inevitably involves choices, even risk. Weigh the pros and cons of compromise, not against perfection, not against getting all you want, but against getting nothing, which is often the true alternative. Stay open to compromise. It's worth it. Compromise is also essential to get things done in any situation in which power is distributed among many hands, which is the case in a democracy. Remaining civil is about the golden rule. Treating others as you would want to be treated, respecting them no matter how much you might disagree. It is needed if there is to be compromise, if relationships are to be preserved, so you can work together on other issues down the road. What civility is not about is censorship. We're living at a time rife with a lack of civility. But politically charged conversations can offer opportunities for learning and deeper understanding and persuasion, but only so long as they are civil. Political violence has no place in a healthy democracy. Nothing justifies it. It risks bringing about a society where rights must be sacrificed to maintain order. Violence that is politically motivated undermines your ability to persuade and bring others along. And what's more, violence discredits and distracts from whatever cause you are advocating. We think of ourselves as a nation of laws, but democracy requires more than laws to function. Citizens must embrace and insist on valuing norms, the unwritten traditions, rules, customs, and codes of conduct that reduce friction in a society. Observance of norms, from accepting the outcome of elections to accepting higher standards for those entrusted with power, is essential for democracy to be successful. There are both moral and practical reasons to care about our fellow Americans, from religious teachings to moral philosophy, to simply doing what is right. This is not only the basis for most volunteerism and charity, but it's also essential for living together. Acting in the common interest also serves selfish purposes. Contributing to society and the economy helps us while helping the whole. If you litter in the park, the next time you go for a picnic, you'll be surrounded by trash. Or if someone fails to return a library book, you'll be delayed in getting to read it. Masks, which can be an inconvenience, both protect the wearer and those around them from disease spreading. Rugged individualism, which has long been celebrated in America, is on an upswing. But it is essential to remember that the collective, the public good, is what makes our society strong. We must balance our rights with the rights of others, and we must balance our rights with our obligations to others. Respecting government service helps a democracy flourish. From the military and state offices to youth corps and the post office, there are millions of government employees who play a critical role in our daily lives. It's important to acknowledge their service and say thank you. We want the most talented among us to enter government. We will all benefit if they do. Government matters. No people should assume that their history, their heritage, and what is essential to it is widely known or automatically handed down. Collective identity has to be taught. Schools and colleges, for the most part, aren't teaching civics, or if they do, they aren't necessarily teaching it well or requiring that all students take these courses. As a result, we're failing to pass down the essentials for what it means to be an American and a citizen of this country, about why democracy is worth preserving and what it requires of all of us. Still, I'm encouraged when I see teachers finding creative ways to teach their students about civics, about American history, and their rights and obligations as American citizens. We need more of this in the years to come. This country will only succeed. This country will only be in a position to provide you what you need if citizens put the interests of the country before their political party or their own ambitions. This is what President John F. Kennedy had in mind when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." It's also what he had in mind when he wrote the book Profiles in Courage, where he celebrated Americans who are willing to do the right thing in the face of pressures and incentives not to. That's my take. To learn more about how to be a good citizen, go to pbs.org/preserving democracy.
Excellent. I don't know where you found that, but it's a great piece. Are there any other further announcements? Okay, let's end with some closing words from Sam Trombor, and then we will extinguish our chalice. Go forth in simplicity, find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. And our chalice extinguishing words are, we extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Okay, so I'm not going to sing anything, but I do have a nice little poem because tomorrow is St. Patty's Day.
Yes.
We went to the Emerald Isle on St. Patty's Day and arrived just in time for the lavish parade. The pixies, the fairies, the leprechauns came to hear the bagpipes tune and the fife and the drum. Don't be a hooligan, don't give us any blarney. We all came out to find about the kilts of Killarney. We women all love how your legs are built. Just tell us the secret, what's under your kilt? Do we have to wait till hell freezes below? Do we have to pray for a wee wind to blow? Do we have to abide till the coming of Easter? Please bend over me, gents, and show us your keister. You've marched into battle for 400 years, but our bewilderment is what holds up your ears. Do we have to conjure the gnomes and the witches? What is under your kilt? Are you wearing any breeches? Are they striped or polka dot? Or pretty roses at the wilt? Skivvies with a trapdoor? What is under your kilt? Mr. Drum Major, tassels twirling about. Show us your shillelagh, let the bloody truth out. Is it waving in the breeze? Give me noggin some relief. Are you naked as a jaybird, or is it boxers or briefs?
Very good. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Donna.
We needed something to cheer us up. That was good. Enjoy your coffee hour. I just had a thunderstorm here. I hope you don't catch it. Bye-bye now.
Bye. That was really cute. Teresa, you should share that.